So, and we're still in the manual here. We're still in the service manual. This is the section that talks about maintenance. And we divide maintenance into a periodicity of certain checks that we recommend for the system. I come from the Navy, so I served on ships, and as part of my responsibility, and I did work in the engineering plant. So one thing that our CO always required of us is that we always, on a daily basis, have to walk our spaces, right? So every day you go check your spaces, you check your equipment to make sure that everything is operating right. It sounds right, it feels right, it looks right. And it's really no different than with our system as well. We do recommend that on a daily basis, you go through and you walk around the unit, you check to make sure that, again, everything looks right, sounds right, and feels right. Also, you can obviously check for alarms on the HMI. So we have what we call our daily checks, and that's, again, just once a day. I don't know what your process is, if this is something that you regularly do with your equipment, but it's something that we do recommend. It's nice to have a daily awareness of your system to make sure everything looks the way it should be. And then we have also what we call weekly maintenance, is kind of along the same lines, but maybe a few additional checks. And we actually will list what these checks are. I'm just kind of going over the overview right now. Then we've got our monthly maintenance. So the daily, the weekly, and the monthly, I always consider to be more of, customer checks or, operator checks. We have in the past had arrangements with customers where we'll come in and do a monthly. In my opinion, that's not really needed. I think it's more of a waste of money, to be honest with you. I mean, we can surely come in every month and walk the unit, but it's something that I think that is more relegated for the customer to do. But we have had arrangements where we've done that. They paid us to come and check it, on a monthly basis. And then we get into what we call our semi-annual, annual, and even overhaul periods. These three items, the semis, the annuals, and the overhauls, are typically, that's what you would contract with us to do. So we would have a service technician who would come and do these types of extended checks of the system. Okay.
How do you become a certified customer?
You become, if you want to do these checks on your own, and as a certified customer, you would have to attend some of our training courses, and you'd have to. Some of them. Some of the lower level, like the semi-annual, we can actually do here in the U.S. We have trainers who can do that. We can even come here and give you the training for that type. For the higher level, like annual or overhauls, you might have to go to Holland for those courses. Okay. But at the end of that training, then you would be certified, to do some of these higher level maintenance activities.
Along those lines, it would probably be down the line, because we would like to, when you are doing the semi-annual maintenance, and kind of look over the shoulder, and ask the questions and such like that, and not actually physically, wrenching.
Right.
And then make that call later on by big guys. Whether that's a viable option, or is it just better?
Yeah.
To keep it as
Yeah. We actually like that. We like when customers are, curious and would like to go around with us, and as we do these checks. An interested customer is a very good customer. Now, it's different. It may be different for you, but we have lots of other customers in areas of data centers, for example, where there's lots of turnover. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for them usually to send their guys to a course to get certified when 6 months later, they're somewhere else. It may be different from you guys, because you tend to stick around, I would imagine. So it makes more sense for you guys to come and get yourself certified and do a lot of this maintenance on your own. But that's your decision.
What do you recommend
For the switchgear itself specifically? Well, how we handle that, and again, you know, we supplied the switchgear. We contracted with a shop in Texas, you know, to build the gear. M&I is the builder of the gear. So we, even though you may have a contract with us for maintenance of the system, we may not be the ones coming to actually maintenance the switchgear. We'll contract that out to another party to come and do things like switchgear maintenance or diesel maintenance. You know, we'll contract with Cummins to come here and do that. We'll contract with Eaton, for example, to come and service the breakers in the switchgear. Okay, so that's how we handle that. So it may not be our technicians who are getting into the switchgear or the diesel, but we'll contract that out. But we'll handle things that are, you know, high-tech in nature. You know, our own systems, our flywheels, our controls, you know, we'll obviously handle all that with our service members. Okay. And you could do the same thing. If you know, if you were doing your own maintenance, for example, you may not feel comfortable about maintaining the switchgear yourself. You would contract that out to an Eaton or a Cummins or, you know, whatever. But again, if you're going to be maintaining high-tech equipment, you have to be, in our minds, you have to be certified, you know, to do that. Okay. Yeah, overhauls is a special thing. We're not going to do an overhaul every year, obviously. Overhauls are meant to be, you know, every 7 to 10 years, depending on, you know, the system that is being overhauled. Our chems, for example, the flywheel has a 10-year overhaul period. So after about 10 years of flywheel use, we're going to bring in another flywheel. We're going to exchange it with the one you have now because we can't run forever on those bearings. So after about 10 years, the chems will be changed out. We'll also change out the bearings in the generators as well as part of an overhaul. So that's about every 10 years. Batteries and things like that will also be replaced on a periodic basis.
So would it be modular? So we're taking the motor exciter and the cam.
Yeah.
So it's just modular, right? You just take the whole assembly out.
Yep.
Put the other one in, align it.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
Not actually do bearing jobs in place.
No, we don't maintenance the bearings of our flywheels. We take out the entire machine and put in a new machine. We can take the old one back, refurbish the bearings in it, and, you know, put it back into a cycle.
Basically, the whole back end from the diesel.
Yeah.
You just remove that whole section.
Correct. Now we don't replace alternators, but we do replace the bearings on the alternators, and we can do that as it sits in its space. Because we can get at the bearings for the alternators. We can't get at the inner bearings of our chems, so that's why we replace the whole unit.
So you just bring in a rebuilt chems in and swap it out?
Yes, for the flywheel, yes, for the chem. Okay, so now we can go into some detail. This is, again, we're going through the manual. The manual will indicate, you know, different checks for different time periods. We also have additional document instructions which give these activities as well, along with checklists that you can use, and we'll go into that after we go into the service pages. So as far as daily checks, they're not too involved, and they don't take a lot of time, obviously. We're just talking about, you know, walking around the unit, again, listening, watching, feeling, looking at temperatures. You know, there's a sight glasses on the clutch. Make sure the oil level is nice and where it needs to be. The HMI has information that you can check on to make sure that your temperatures are good. SCADA has temperatures on it. You know, take a glance at the SCADA, for example, is something you can do. But basically, you're just looking at temperatures, oil levels, water levels, making sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Noise level is an important thing. If a bearing is going bad, you're gonna hear it. Okay, you're probably gonna hear it before you feel it. Any kind of a bearing issue you might have. Check your preheating on your diesel. Make sure your diesel is nice and warm so it's ready for its next start. We're kind of big on cleanliness at High Tech. We think that a clean machine runs better. So, you know, don't let your machine get too dirty. Dirt's never good around, you know, PLC components and stuff like that. So try and keep your dirt away. One thing that you know, obviously where the PGM sits, above it, there's a grating that can allow things to fall through the floor maybe. So be careful about that. You might want to think about putting some kind of guard above floor so that you can't drop anything on the engine. And then just general check of your HMI. You know, what are there alarms? If there are alarms, can you explain them? Are they low level, higher level alarms? An alarm that you can explain is not always a bad thing. You might have a breaker in trip. You know, the ISO switch is in trip because you put it there. So that's an alarm you would expect to see. So again, if you see an alarm and it makes sense, then it's not a big deal. But check for alarms that don't make sense. Okay.
I don't see oil temperature on there.
It may not be on this list, but we do have an oil temperature reading on the.
Downstairs, that was like 84 or 86, and I've got my minimum was 90 on most rotating machinery.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the range should be for a Cummins engine, but I do know that we have an alarm level in our HMI, plus the diesel also has an alarm level that will alert us if it gets out of range.
Temperature?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So those are your dailies. Here's some of your weeklies. So a little more involved in your weeklies, of course, you'd expect that. Again, all the same checks as your dailies. You might want to do, and you don't have a bypass control panel, so don't worry about that. But you know, do a lamp test of your HMI, make sure all your bulbs are working. Look at your output voltages and frequencies and all that to make sure that you know, they're where you expect them to be. Look at your power levels. Look at your currents. And again, basically, this is most of the things that you can find on the HMI. So it's just a quick scan through your HMI screens just to make sure everything is nice and good. TDS stands for Technical Data Sheet. So
Okay.
the specifications of your system, basically.
Yeah, we'll have that with
Yeah. Just match the reading that you're seeing with what
got it.
the system is rated for. In other words, you're a 4160 volt site, so all your voltages should be, you know, 4160, right? All right, still in weeklies again, you know, abnormal noises, check for proper airflow, bearing temps. You do have an earthing brush on your generator on the shaft so that we don't send stray currents through the bearings. So just, you know, check your brush on your shaft to make sure that it's not worn down too much. Fuel leakage, coolant leakage. Again, bearing temperatures, abnormal noises. Check your kinetic energy module rotating speed. Fuel leakages, etc., etc. Okay. Cleanliness. And then monthly maintenance. Okay, so you can see how things kind of build upon themselves. So, you know, monthly is going to include everything else from dailies and weeklies, and maybe add a few more things to it.
Can I ask something real quick?
Yeah.
About cooling system. Our other 5 radiators for our other 5 diesels have a cover over the top of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not horizontally mounted radiators, they're vertically mounted. But on this one up here, we don't have anything. I mean, there's like a screen of some sort. Is there,
Keep
like,
birds off.
to keep birds
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but is that something where we might wanna look into, is having some sort of a cover over that thing?
Well, number one, you don't want to cover
I understand.
on
that.
your radiator because the airflow
Right.
comes up off the top. Now, sometimes what we do see in areas where it snows is we see a snow cover, which is just a triangular cover, graded cover that covers the radiator to keep snow from accumulating on it. But that wasn't called for this project. I guess you don't get a whole lot of snow
Well,
accumulation.
it's snow, but there's dust and things.
Yeah.
Dirt.
There's nothing you can really do for that. And again, you don't want to impede the airflow,
I
coming out of the radiator. Yeah.
But it's actually under an overhang, the whole 5 radiator assemblies.
Mhm.
There's a preventive roof.
Yeah, right.
Cardboard looking thing.
Yeah.
on the return. So is that what
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I was just
Yeah.
wondering that.
Yeah, but no, it's not something that, we use horizontal radiators typically. That's our typical use of a radiator. And they're designed to be outdoors and to operate in that fashion. Again, the only time we would cover it with something is if it was a snow area that would be,
Yeah, you don't see much snow.
Yeah. All right, so again, more into monthlies here. These pretty much mirror the weeklies. Here are some extra things you can do for monthlies. Speaking of the radiator control panel is right next to the system data panel. And you might notice that there's a handoff auto switch. So you can actually test run your radiator. The diesel does not have to be running because it's drawing its power from the output of the system. So you can actually test run your diesel with the handoff auto switch as kind of a monthly check. Freewheel clutch, oil levels. Okay, so here's where, we're in the monthlies now. Here's where you might want to run a diesel test. So go ahead and run your diesel test, start your diesel, let it run, make sure it's running at the proper idle speed. Here you should expect it, again, 1750 approximately for idle speed, so that's something that you would do on a monthly basis. After finishing your diesel test, check to make sure your fuel level is still good. Your running hours, check for alarms. While the diesel is running, obviously you can check to make sure that their fuel is getting to the engine. Make sure your day tank is being filled properly.
Do you guys offer sample log sheets?
Mhm.
For these for like paper log?
Yeah, well, I'll pull some up because we do offer some samples, and I think they're Excel, so you can actually modify them, I believe.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Personalize it.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's nothing worse than a log where you're up and down, up and down. You want it set up to where there's
Right.
a sensible route
Correct.
to get to it.
Right, and that could be site specific, so you might have to
Yeah.
change things around a little bit.
Especially get on that roof.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a monthly maintenance item where, again, it's recommended that we do a system test, every month. So at the end of the day, that's your decision. But if you want to run a system test, once a month, just to make sure that not only does the diesel start, but the flywheel is working correctly and you're able to do a transition, back and forth. And then these are, again, just voltage, frequencies, battery voltage, temperatures, oil pressures, inner rotor speed. After you finish your system test, again, check your readings. Okay. So the manual is going to go through the dailies, weeklies, and monthlies, and then the quarterlies and semi-annuals you'll have to go to our maintenance documents, which I'll show you here in a second, to get that additional information. The rest of the manual, as far as itself, it goes a little bit into troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is a bit of an art with a high-tech system. Service technicians and engineers who've worked with high-tech for years and years, we know how to troubleshoot the system. It's something that as an operator or a customer, It may take time for you to be able to understand the unit more and more each day to where you can get to a troubleshooting type of activity. Because troubleshooting might also involve, checking over drawings, looking over specifications. So obviously, if you have a service contract with High-Tech, when it comes to troubleshooting, we're probably going to be the ones called to the site to do that. But of course, we can involve you with that and kind of teach you as we go along. But as you learn more about the system, as you use it from day to day over the years, I'm sure you'll gain a real appreciation and awareness of how it works in great detail, and you'll get to the point to where you can do a lot of troubleshooting yourself. But it's mainly knowing your alarms, knowing how the schematics are laid out, how the system's designed, and knowing how to use SCADA, for example, and then you can get into kind of more troubleshooting the system. This doesn't really teach you how to troubleshoot. It just says basically pay attention to alarms and how to clear alarms and stuff like that. Sometimes the HMI indications, the actual language of the HMI alarm, will direct you as far as where the problem is. There's only so much wording we can use for certain alarms, but for example, an alarm might say your GDP disconnect breaker is open. Okay, so that would be your GDP disconnect between the generator and the choke. Fairly straightforward for those types of alarms. Okay, so again, the alarm text itself will often indicate to you a clue as to what it is. If you don't understand that, give us a call, and obviously we'll be able to help and direct you as well, to dig deeper into what the issue may be.